every parent knows that moment when their child's safety hangs in the balance. But, what happens when a decorated Navy SEAL, trained to face the world's deadliest enemies, finds himself in the most personal battle of his life? When three grown men corner his teenage daughter outside a movie theater, Marcus Rodriguez discovers that being a single father is the hardest mission he's ever faced. This isn't just another story about military heroics or parental protection. This is about a man who spent 15 years serving his country in the shadows, only to find that his greatest test would come not in some foreign battlefield, but in a suburban parking lot on an ordinary Tuesday evening. What unfolds next will challenge everything you think you know about courage, sacrifice, and the true meaning of honor. The events of that night would not only change Marcus and his daughter Emma forever, but would also catch the attention of someone Marcus thought he'd never see again, Admiral Sarah Chen, his former commanding officer, who had been quietly watching from the sidelines. Her unexpected arrival and the revelation she brings will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about second chances and the bonds that truly matter. This is a story that proves sometimes the most extraordinary battles happen in the most ordinary places, and that a father's love can be the most powerful weapon of all. Marcus Rodriguez stood at the kitchen window, watching the morning sun cast long shadows across their small backyard. The coffee in his hands had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, calculating schedules, worrying about pickup times, and mentally rehearsing the conversation he needed to have with Emma about her grades. Being a single father wasn't something they taught you in SEAL training. The house felt too quiet without Emma's usual morning chaos. She'd left early for school, claiming she had a study group, though Marcus suspected it had more to do with avoiding their ongoing discussion about her recent behavior. At 15, Emma was testing boundaries he wasn't sure how to set. The military had given him clear rules of engagement, but parenting seemed to operate in an entirely different battlefield where the rules changed daily. His phone buzzed against the counter. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, saw Emma leaving with those kids again. The older ones. Just thought you should know. Marcus set down his coffee cup harder than necessary. Mrs. Patterson meant well, but her messages always carried an undertone of judgment that made him feel like he was failing at this whole single-parent thing. The truth was, he probably was failing. Since Sarah's death 3 years ago, every day felt like he was improvising without a script. Sarah had been the one who understood Emma's moods, who knew exactly what to say when their daughter came home upset about friends or teachers or the thousand small dramas that seemed to define teenage life. Marcus could handle enemy combatants and high-stakes missions, but a 15-year-old girl's emotional needs often left him feeling more lost than he'd ever felt in any war zone. He pulled up Emma's contact on his phone, then hesitated. She'd been pushing for more independence lately, arguing that other kids her age didn't have their parents checking on them constantly. "You treat me like I'm still a baby, Dad," she'd said last week, her voice carrying that particular combination of frustration and hurt that teenagers had perfected. "I'm not going to get kidnapped walking to the store." Marcus had wanted to explain that he'd seen too much of the world to believe in the safety she took for granted. He'd wanted to tell her about the missions where everything went wrong in seconds, where the difference between coming home and not coming home often came down to pure luck. Instead, he just reminded her to text him when she got wherever she was going. The house phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Marcus glanced at the caller ID and sighed. Emma's school. "Mr. Rodriguez? This is Principal Matthews. I'm afraid Emma wasn't in her first 3 classes this morning." Marcus felt that familiar knot form in his stomach. "She left for school on time. Said she had a study group." "Sir, I think we need to have a conversation about Emma's recent attendance patterns. This isn't the first time she's been marked absent when you thought she was here." After hanging up, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. The very skills that had made him an effective SEAL seemed to work against him as a father. He was used to clear objectives and measurable outcomes. In the military, you completed your mission or you didn't. Success and failure were definable. But, with Emma, every small victory seemed to come with 2 new problems he hadn't anticipated. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Emma, staying after school for drama club practice. "We'll need a ride at 6. Marcus stared at the message. According to Principal Matthews, she hadn't been in school at all today. He typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "I'll be there at 6. We need to talk." The afternoon dragged by. Marcus tried to focus on the freelance security consulting work that paid the bills, but his mind kept wandering to Emma. He thought about calling his old teammate Jake, who had 2 teenagers of his own, but pride stopped him. Jake's wife was still alive. Jake didn't have to figure out how to be both mother and father to a girl who seemed to need things Marcus didn't know how to provide. At 5:30, Marcus drove to Emma's school. The drama club was real enough. He could see students through the windows of the auditorium, rehearsing what looked like scenes from a play. He spotted Emma immediately. She was laughing with a boy Marcus didn't recognize, someone older than the other kids. The boy's posture, the way he stood just a little too close to Emma, triggered every protective instinct Marcus possessed. When Emma emerged from the building at 6:15, she looked surprised to see him waiting by his truck instead of staying in the car. "Dad? I texted that I'd meet you in the parking lot." "Principal Matthews called today," Marcus said, studying his daughter's face. "Funny thing, he seemed to think you weren't in school." Emma's expression didn't change, but Marcus caught the slight tensing around her eyes. After 15 years of reading people in high-stress situations, he'd learned to spot tells. "There must be some mistake with the attendants," Emma said, opening the passenger door. "You know how messed up their computer system is." During the drive home, Marcus chose his words carefully. "Emma, I know I'm not perfect at this dad thing. I know I don't always know the right things to say or do. But I need you to be honest with me. If something's going on, if you're having problems at school or with friends, we can figure it out together." Emma stared out the window. "Nothing's going on, Dad. You worry too much. It's my job to worry about you. Your job is to trust me." That evening, Marcus made Emma's favorite dinner, spaghetti with the meat sauce his wife had taught him to make. It was one of the few recipes he'd mastered, and it usually guaranteed at least a few minutes of normal conversation. But Emma picked at her food, answering his questions about school and friends with shrugs and single-syllable responses. After dinner, as Emma disappeared upstairs to her room, Marcus found himself looking at the family photo on the living room mantel. It had been taken 4 years ago, before Sarah's cancer diagnosis, when Emma was still young enough to think her parents were the smartest, strongest people in the world. In the photo, Emma was grinning widely, her arms wrapped around both her parents. Sarah was laughing at something Marcus had said, her eyes bright with the kind of joy that had first attracted him to her all those years ago. Marcus had kept all of Sarah's things exactly as she'd left them. Her books were still stacked on her nightstand, her coffee mug still sat in the kitchen cabinet where she'd always kept it, and her perfume bottle still sat on the bathroom counter, though the scent had long since faded. He knew Emma thought he should move on, maybe start dating again, but the truth was that he couldn't imagine loving someone the way he'd loved Sarah. More than that, he was terrified of bringing someone new into their lives and somehow making an even bigger mess of Emma's world. His laptop was open on the coffee table, displaying the latest security assessment he was writing for a corporate client. The work was steady and well-paying, but it felt hollow compared to the sense of purpose he'd had in the SEALs. There, every mission mattered. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death for his teammates or innocent civilians. Now his biggest challenge was trying to make sense of corporate security protocols and wondering whether his 15-year-old daughter was lying to him about where she spent her days. Around 10 o'clock, Marcus heard Emma on the phone in her room. Her voice was muffled through the door, but he caught fragments of conversation that made his stomach tighten. "No, he doesn't know. Yeah, I can meet you there. Just give me a few minutes to make sure he's asleep." Marcus stood outside Emma's door for a long moment, debating whether to knock. In the military, when you suspected someone was lying, you confronted them directly. But this wasn't the military, and Emma wasn't an enemy combatant. She was his daughter, and every parenting book he'd ever read seemed to have a different opinion about the balance between trust and supervision. He knocked softly. "Emma? Everything okay in there?" "Fine, Dad. Just talking to Melissa about homework." Marcus wanted to ask why homework conversations required secrecy, but he also remembered being 15 and thinking every conversation with friends was a matter of life and death importance. Okay. Don't stay up too late. I won't. But, at midnight, Marcus noticed light still seeping from under Emma's door. And, at 1 in the morning, he heard her window opening. Marcus lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of Emma sneaking out of the house. Every instinct told him to follow her, to find out where she was going and who she was meeting. But another part of him worried that if he caught her, if he confronted her about the lying and the sneaking around, it would only push her further away. He thought about Sarah, about how she would have handled this. Sarah had always known when to push and when to give Emma space. She'd understood their daughter in ways that sometimes made Marcus feel like an outsider in his own family. Not because Sarah excluded him, but because the bond between mother and daughter seemed to operate on a frequency he couldn't quite tune into. Sarah would have known whether this was normal teenage rebellion or something more serious. Sarah would have known whether Emma was hanging out with friends or getting into real trouble. Sarah would have known what to say to make Emma feel heard without feeling judged. But Sarah was gone, and Marcus was left to figure it out on his own. At 2 in the morning, he heard Emma's window sliding closed again. Footsteps in the hallway, the soft click of her door closing. Marcus closed his eyes and pretended to sleep, even though his mind was racing with questions he didn't know how to ask. The next morning, Emma appeared in the kitchen at her usual time, looking perfectly normal. She made toast, grabbed her backpack, and kissed Marcus goodbye on the cheek like nothing had happened. "Have a good day at school," Marcus said, studying her face for any sign of fatigue or guilt. "I will, Dad. Love you." "Love you too, kiddo." After Emma left, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his coffee and tried to decide what kind of father he wanted to be. The kind who trusted his daughter to make good choices, even when evidence suggested she wasn't? The kind who monitored her every move until she felt suffocated? Or something in between that he hadn't figured out yet? His phone rang. Principal Matthews again. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm calling about yesterday's conversation." Emma was indeed absent from her first 3 classes, but she was in school for drama club practice. "I wanted to follow up because this pattern of partial attendance is becoming concerning." "What kind of pattern?" Emma arrives at school late several days a week, always missing her morning classes but present for her afternoon activities. "When we've called before, we've spoken with you, and you've always seemed to think she was in school all day." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 6 weeks, possibly longer." After hanging up, Marcus stared at his phone, trying to process what he'd just learned. Emma had been lying to him for over a month, leaving the house on time but not actually arriving at school until afternoon. Where was she going? Who was she with? And why did she feel like she couldn't tell him the truth? He thought about all the times she'd claimed to have study groups or early morning activities. All the times he'd dropped her off at school only to learn later that she hadn't been in her first class. All the times he'd congratulated himself on having a daughter who was responsible and trustworthy. Marcus had spent years learning to read people, to detect deception and assess threats. But, somehow, he'd missed the signs that his own daughter was systematically lying to him. The realization hit him harder than he'd expected. Not just that Emma was being dishonest, but that their relationship had somehow reached a point where she felt like dishonesty was her only option. Where had he gone wrong? When had she stopped feeling like she could come to him with whatever was really going on in her life? That evening, Marcus waited until after dinner to bring it up. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." Emma looked up from her homework, and Marcus saw a flash of something: fear? Guilt? Cross her face before she managed to compose herself. "Okay. Your principal called again today. Emma, you've been missing your morning classes for weeks. I need to know where you're going and who you're with." For a moment, Emma just stared at him. Then, her shoulders sagged, and she looked suddenly much younger than 15. "Dad, I can explain." "I'm listening." But, instead of explaining, Emma started crying. Not the dramatic tears Marcus had seen during their arguments about curfew or phone privileges, but quiet, exhausted sobs that made his chest tighten with worry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know how to tell you." Marcus moved to sit beside her on the couch, fighting every impulse to demand answers immediately. "Tell me what, sweetheart? There are these kids at school. Older kids. They've been bothering me." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What do you mean, bothering you?" Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "They wait for me by the bike racks in the morning. They say things, and they follow me sometimes. I started going to the library instead of school until I knew they'd be in class." Marcus felt his training kick in, the cold, analytical part of his mind that assessed threats and formulated responses. But, underneath that, rage was building. "How long has this been going on?" "Since the beginning of the semester." "Emma, why didn't you tell me?" She looked at him with an expression that was part frustration, part exhaustion. "Because I knew you'd want to fix it. I knew you'd want to call the school or talk to their parents or something that would just make it worse." "Of course I want to fix it. These kids are harassing you. And if you get involved, everyone will know my dad had to fight my battles for me. It'll just give them more ammunition." Marcus understood her logic, but it didn't make him feel any less helpless. "Emma, you can't handle this by yourself. That's not how this works. I wasn't handling it by myself. I was avoiding it. There's a difference. Avoiding it by lying to me and missing school. I was going to figure something else out. I just needed some time." They talked for another hour, Emma gradually revealing more details about the harassment. 3 boys, seniors, who had decided Emma was an easy target because she was quiet and didn't have a big group of friends to back her up. Nothing physical so far, but verbal intimidation that had escalated over time. As Emma described what these boys had been saying to her, Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm, to be the father Emma needed rather than the SEAL who wanted to hunt down 3 teenage bullies. "We're going to handle this," he told her. "Together. But no more lying, and no more skipping school. Dad, if you talk to the school, Emma, I'm not going to make things worse for you. But I'm also not going to let this continue. Trust me, okay?" That night, after Emma went to bed, Marcus sat in his home office and did what he did best: he gathered intelligence. He looked up the boys Emma had named, found their social media profiles, learned about their families and their histories. He researched the school's anti-bullying policies and documented every detail Emma had shared with him. He also found himself thinking about Emma's words, "I knew you'd want to fix it." She wasn't wrong. Every instinct he possessed was telling him to neutralize the threat to his daughter. But Emma was right about something else too: if he handled this wrong, he could make her situation much worse. Marcus stared at the photos of the 3 boys on his computer screen. They looked like typical teenagers, the kind who probably thought they were tough because they could intimidate a 15-year-old girl. They had no idea that Emma's father had spent 15 years learning very effective ways to deal with people who threatened the innocent. But this wasn't a battlefield, and these weren't enemy combatants. They were kids, probably acting out their own insecurities and problems. Emma needed him to be her father, not her military defender. The question was, how did he protect his daughter without destroying her independence? How did he fix this without proving to Emma that she couldn't trust him with the hard parts of her life? As Marcus closed his laptop and headed to bed, he made a decision. Tomorrow, he would start by talking to the school. He would approach it strategically, carefully, the way he'd approach any mission where the stakes were high and the margin for error was small. Because Emma might be right that he wanted to fix everything for her. But she was wrong about one thing: this wasn't about fighting her battles for her. This was about teaching her that she didn't have to fight them alone. The next morning, Marcus drove Emma to school himself instead of letting her take the bus. She sat in the passenger seat, fidgeting with her backpack straps and stealing glances at him every few seconds. "Dad, you don't have to walk me in," she said as they pulled into the school parking lot. "I'm not walking you in. I'm going to have a conversation with your principal, and then, I'm going to make sure you get to your first class safely." This is exactly what I was afraid of. Marcus turned off the engine and looked at his daughter. "Emma, what were you afraid of? That I'd care about what happens to you? That I'd want to protect you? I was afraid you'd make it about you instead of about me." The word stung, partly because Marcus worried she might be right. "How am I making this about me?" Emma gestured toward the school building. "You're here in full protective dad mode, ready to intimidate a bunch of teenagers. This isn't Afghanistan, Dad. You can't just neutralize the threat and move on." Marcus had to admit she had a point. His first instinct was to approach this like a military operation, identify the threat, develop a strategy to eliminate it, execute the plan. But Emma lived in this school every day. Whatever solution they implemented had to work in her world, not his. "Okay," he said. "What do you think we should do?" Emma looked surprised by the question. "I don't know. I was hoping it would just stop." "Has it gotten worse since it started?" "Not worse, exactly. But not better either." "They're not going away, Dad." Marcus nodded. "Then, we handle it. But we do it smart, and we do it together." Principal Matthews was a tired-looking man in his 50s who seemed genuinely concerned about Emma's situation. He listened carefully as Marcus explained what Emma had told him, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. "I have to say, Mr. Rodriguez, I'm disappointed that Emma didn't feel comfortable coming to us with this earlier. We have protocols in place for exactly this kind of situation." "What kind of protocols?" Marcus asked. "We can speak with the students involved, document the incidents, and, if necessary, implement disciplinary measures. We can also adjust schedules to minimize contact between Emma and these boys." "And how effective are these protocols, typically?" Principal Matthews hesitated. "They're effective when students report incidents promptly and when we have clear documentation of what's happening. The challenge is that much of this behavior happens in spaces we don't directly monitor, hallways between classes, areas outside school grounds before and after school." Marcus had expected as much. "What about involving the parents of these boys?" "That's certainly an option, though it can sometimes escalate situations rather than resolve them." After the meeting, Marcus walked Emma to her first class. As they approached the classroom, he noticed a group of older boys near the lockers. Emma's posture changed immediately, her shoulders tensed, her pace quickened slightly. "Are those them?" Marcus asked quietly. Emma nodded. Marcus studied the three boys with the same attention he'd once given to potential threats in hostile territory. They were bigger than he'd expected from their social media photos, clearly athletes based on their builds. The one in the middle, a tall kid with dark hair, was watching Emma with an expression that made Marcus's jaw clench. "Keep walking," Marcus murmured to Emma. "Don't look at them." As they passed the group, Marcus heard one of the boys say something under his breath that he couldn't quite catch, but Emma's face flushed red. Marcus felt every muscle in his body tense, but he forced himself to keep walking. After Emma disappeared into her classroom, Marcus approached the three boys. "Good morning," he said, his voice carefully neutral. The boys looked up, suddenly, uncertain. Up close, Marcus could see they were probably 17 or 18, old enough to think they were adults but young enough to still be intimidated by actual adults. "You're Emma Rodriguez's father," the tall one said. It wasn't a question. "I am." "And you are?" "Tyler," the boy said after a moment. "Tyler Harrison." Marcus nodded, filing the name away. "Tyler, I understand you and Emma go to school together." "Yeah, we're in the same lunch period." "Good to know." "Well, I hope you boys have a great day at school." Marcus walked away without saying anything else, but he made sure to memorize their faces and their body language. Tyler Harrison was clearly the leader, comfortable with confrontation. The other two seemed to take their cues from him. As Marcus drove home, he thought about the brief encounter. He hadn't threatened them or even mentioned the harassment directly, but he'd made his presence known. In his experience, bullies usually preferred targets they thought were defenseless. Knowing that Emma had a father who was paying attention might be enough to make them back off. But Marcus had also seen the way Tyler looked at him, not with the fear or respect Marcus was used to seeing from people who realized they were dealing with someone dangerous. There was something calculating in the boy's expression, as if he was sizing Marcus up rather than backing down. That afternoon, Marcus was working in his home office when his phone rang. Emma's school again, but this time it wasn't Principal Matthews. "Mr. Rodriguez? This is Nancy Chen, the school nurse. Emma is here in my office. She's not injured, but she's pretty shaken up. She asked me to call you." Marcus was already reaching for his keys. "I'll be right there." "What happened?" he asked as he pulled into the school parking lot 15 minutes later. "I'm not entirely sure. Emma came in about 20 minutes ago saying she felt sick, but I think it's more emotional than physical. She won't tell me what happened." Marcus found Emma sitting on the nurse's cot, looking smaller than her 15 years. When she saw him, her composure cracked. "Dad, I want to go home." "Of course. Can you tell me what happened?" Emma shook her head, fresh tears starting to fall. "Can we just leave? Please?" Marcus signed Emma out and drove her home in silence. It wasn't until they were sitting in their living room that she was ready to talk. "They cornered me after lunch," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "In the hallway by the gym. They said they knew you talked to them this morning." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What else did they say?" "Tyler said it was cute that I had to get my daddy to fight my battles for me. He said now I'd made things interesting." "Emma, I didn't threaten them. I barely even spoke to them." "I know, Dad. But Tyler isn't normal. I don't think he's afraid of you. I think he's excited." Marcus processed this information with growing unease. In his years of military service, he'd encountered people who didn't respond to normal deterrence strategies. People who escalated when they should have backed down, who saw resistance as a challenge rather than a warning. "Did they touch you?" "No, but Tyler got really close. He said next time you wouldn't be around to rescue me." That evening, Marcus called Jake, his former teammate who now worked private security in Dallas. "Marcus, good to hear from you. How's civilian life treating you?" "It's complicated. Jake, I need some advice about Emma." Marcus explained the situation, keeping his voice low in case Emma was listening from upstairs. Jake listened without interrupting, asking only a few clarifying questions. "This Tyler kid sounds like a predator in training," Jake said when Marcus finished. "The fact that he escalated after you made contact instead of backing down is a red flag." "That's what I was thinking. So what do I do? Emma doesn't want me to make things worse, but I can't just let this continue." "You document everything, and you make sure Emma is never alone with these kids. The school's anti-bullying policies are probably useless against someone like Tyler, but you need to create a paper trail anyway." "And if the paper trail doesn't stop it?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "Marcus, you know I've got 2 girls myself. If someone was threatening them the way this kid is threatening Emma, well, let's just say I'd make sure the threat was neutralized." After hanging up, Marcus sat in his kitchen and tried to think like a strategist rather than a father. The school's protocols were reactive rather than proactive. They could respond to incidents after they happened, but they couldn't prevent them. And Emma was right that getting the administration involved might just give Tyler more ammunition to use against her. Marcus opened his laptop and started researching Tyler Harrison. What he found made his concerns deeper. Tyler's social media profile showed a pattern of aggressive behavior, photos of him and his friends intimidating younger students, references to incidents that suggested he'd been in trouble before. This wasn't normal teenage bullying, this was systematic predatory behavior. More troubling, Marcus found references to Tyler's father, a local businessman with connections to city politics. The kind of man who probably had lawyers on speed dial and who might view any threat to his son as a personal challenge. The next morning, Emma didn't want to go to school. "I can't handle another day of looking over my shoulder," she said, picking at her breakfast. "Dad, what if we just moved? You work from home anyway. We could live anywhere." Marcus sat down across from her. "Emma, running away isn't going to solve this. And you shouldn't have to give up your school and your friends because of 3 bullies." "What friends? Dad, I don't have a lot of friends here. The few people I hang out with are afraid to be seen with me now because they don't want Tyler to target them too." This was news to Marcus. "Since when?" "Since Tyler decided I was interesting." "Dad, you don't understand how this works. Tyler doesn't just pick on one person. He makes it social suicide to be associated with whoever he's targeting." Marcus felt a familiar anger building, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Emma, what if I drove you to school and picked you up every day? Just until we figure out how to handle this? You can't escort me to every class, Dad." "No, but I can make sure you're safe getting to and from school." Emma nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but this can't be permanent. I can't spend my entire high school career having my dad chauffeur me around." "It won't be permanent. I promise." That afternoon, as Marcus waited in the pickup line at Emma's school, he noticed Tyler and his friends hanging around the student parking lot. They seemed to be watching the cars, looking for someone specific. When Emma emerged from the building, Marcus saw Tyler point in her direction. The 3 boys started walking toward the pickup area. Marcus got out of his truck. "Emma, get in the car," he said, his voice carrying the authority he'd perfected during years of military command. Emma complied immediately, sliding into the passenger seat. Tyler and his friends stopped about 10 feet away, close enough to make their presence known but far enough away to maintain plausible deniability. "Mr. Rodriguez," Tyler called out. "How's it going?" Marcus looked at the boy carefully. Tyler's body language was confident, almost cocky. His friends flanked him like backup, trying to look intimidating. "It's going well, Tyler. Thanks for asking." "Cool. Hey, tell Emma I said hi." There was something in Tyler's tone that made Marcus's hands clench into fists. Not quite a threat, but not innocent either. "I'll do that," Marcus said evenly. As Marcus drove away, Emma was quiet for several blocks. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I don't think Tyler is going to stop. I think he's enjoying this." Marcus glanced at his daughter and saw something in her expression he'd never seen before: genuine fear. Not the typical teenage anxiety about social situations or grades, but the kind of fear that came from recognizing real danger. "Emma, I want you to promise me something. If Tyler or his friends ever approach you when I'm not around, if they ever try to get you alone or make you feel unsafe, I want you to call me immediately. Don't worry about making a scene or being embarrassed. Just call me." "Dad, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that some people don't respond to normal deterrence. And I'm thinking that your safety is more important than anything else." That evening, Marcus called Principal Matthews to document the afternoon's incident and to request a meeting with Tyler's parents. Principal Matthews agreed to set up the meeting, but he warned Marcus that Tyler's father could be difficult. Robert Harrison is very protective of Tyler, and he has a tendency to view any criticism of his son as a personal attack, Principal Matthews explained. "Well, he's about to learn that I'm very protective of my daughter." The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon. Marcus spent the morning preparing for it the way he'd once prepared for mission briefings: gathering intelligence, anticipating potential responses, developing contingency plans. He also did something he hadn't done in 3 years: he called his former commanding officer. Admiral Sarah Chen answered on the second ring. "Marcus Rodriguez. I wondered when I'd hear from you." "Admiral Chen. I'm sorry to bother you, but I could use some advice." "It's about your daughter." It wasn't a question, and Marcus wasn't surprised that Admiral Chen already knew why he was calling. She'd always had an uncanny ability to see several steps ahead. Yes, ma'am. Marcus, I've been keeping tabs on you since you left the service. I know about Sarah's death, and I know you've been struggling with single parenthood. Marcus felt a familiar mix of gratitude and discomfort. Admiral Chen had been more than his commanding officer, she'd been a mentor, someone who'd seen potential in him when he couldn't see it himself. But, he'd always been reluctant to ask for help, even from her. Emma is being harassed by some boys at school. The situation is escalating, and I'm not sure how to handle it without making things worse for her. Tell me about these boys. Marcus gave Admiral Chen a complete briefing on Tyler Harrison and his friends, including everything he'd learned about Tyler's family connections and history of aggressive behavior. When he finished, Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, you're dealing with a predator. This Tyler boy isn't just a bully, he's someone who enjoys having power over others and who escalates when challenged. The normal rules don't apply to people like him. That's what I was afraid of. Your instincts are correct. But, you're also right to be cautious about how you handle this. Emma lives in this environment every day. Whatever action you take has to account for that. So what do you suggest? Go to the meeting with Tyler's parents, but don't expect it to solve anything. Tyler's father is probably where Tyler learned that intimidation and connections can substitute for consequences. Document everything, follow the school's procedures, but also prepare for the possibility that official channels won't be enough. And if they're not enough? Then, you do what you have to do to protect your daughter. But, Marcus? Yes, ma'am? Make sure Emma knows she can count on you, no matter what. The worst thing that could happen here is if she starts to believe she's alone in this. After hanging up, Marcus felt somewhat better about the situation. Admiral Chen had always been able to cut through complexity and focus on what really mattered. Emma's safety was what mattered. Everything else was just tactics. The meeting with Tyler's parents the next afternoon went exactly as Admiral Chen had predicted. Robert Harrison was a tall, well-dressed man who spoke with the casual arrogance of someone used to getting his way. Tyler's mother, Patricia, seemed more concerned with defending her son than understanding what he'd been doing. I think there's been some misunderstanding, Robert Harrison said after Principal Matthews outlined the situation. Tyler has never mentioned any problems with this Emma girl. That's because Tyler is the problem, Marcus said quietly. Robert Harrison's expression hardened. Mr. Rodriguez, I don't appreciate your tone. Tyler is a good kid who's never been in any serious trouble. Your son has been systematically harassing my daughter for months. He's escalated his behavior even after being made aware that we know what he's doing. This isn't normal teenage social dynamics. Kids have conflicts, Patricia Harrison interjected. It's part of growing up. Maybe if your daughter was more social, she wouldn't be having these problems. Marcus felt his jaw clench. Mrs. Harrison, are you suggesting that Emma is responsible for being harassed? I'm suggesting that Tyler is a popular, well-adjusted kid, and maybe there are two sides to this story. The meeting deteriorated from there. The Harrisons made it clear they believed their son was being unfairly targeted, and that any consequences for Tyler would result in legal action against the school. After the meeting, Principal Matthews walked Marcus to the parking lot. I'm sorry that didn't go better, he said. I've dealt with the Harrisons before. They make everything more difficult than it needs to be. So what happens now? I'll continue to monitor the situation, and I'll speak with Tyler directly about appropriate behavior. Beyond that, my hands are somewhat tied unless there's a clear incident that I can document. That evening, as Marcus helped Emma with her homework, she asked about the meeting. How did it go with Tyler's parents? Not great. They don't seem to believe Tyler has done anything wrong. Emma nodded, not looking surprised. Tyler told me his dad was a lawyer. He's not a lawyer, but he acts like one. Emma, this doesn't change anything. We're still going to handle this. Dad, what if we can't? What if Tyler is just going to keep doing this until I graduate? Marcus looked at his daughter, really looked at her. In the past few weeks, she'd lost weight. There were dark circles under her eyes. She seemed constantly on edge, jumping at unexpected sounds. Emma, that's not going to happen. I promise you. How can you promise that? Marcus chose his words carefully. Because I'm your father, and protecting you is my job. Whatever it takes. That night, after Emma went to bed, Marcus sat in his kitchen and made a decision. The official channels weren't going to solve this problem. Tyler Harrison was going to continue harassing Emma until someone made it clear that there would be real consequences for his behavior. Marcus opened his laptop and started researching Tyler's schedule, his habits, his vulnerabilities. If the school system and Tyler's parents wouldn't hold him accountable, Marcus would find another way. But he would be careful. Emma was right that this wasn't Afghanistan, and Tyler Harrison wasn't an enemy combatant. Marcus would handle this the way he'd learned to handle complex situations during his years of service, strategically, precisely, and with minimal collateral damage. Tyler Harrison was about to learn what it meant to threaten the daughter of someone who'd spent 15 years learning very effective ways to neutralize threats. 2 weeks passed with an uneasy calm. Marcus continued driving Emma to and from school, and Tyler seemed to have backed off from the more obvious harassment. But Emma remained on edge, jumping at shadows and checking her phone obsessively. He's planning something, Emma told Marcus one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. Tyler doesn't just give up. He's waiting for something. Marcus had come to the same conclusion. His research into Tyler's patterns had revealed a troubling truth: the boy was smart, patient, and vindictive. When Tyler felt challenged or embarrassed, he didn't respond immediately. He waited for opportunities when his targets were most vulnerable. Emma, I want you to promise me you won't go anywhere alone. Not even to the bathroom at school without taking a friend. Dad, you're being paranoid. Maybe. But, humor me. That Friday evening, Emma asked if she could go to the movies with her friend Melissa. It was the first time in weeks she'd shown interest in a normal social activity, and Marcus didn't have the heart to say no. I'll drop you off and pick you up, he said. Dad, Melissa's mom can drive us. It's just the mall cinema. What could happen? Marcus almost said no anyway, but the hope in Emma's voice stopped him. She was 15 years old, and she deserved to have normal teenage experiences. He couldn't keep her locked away because of Tyler Harrison. Okay, but I want you to text me when you get there, when the movie starts, and when it's over. And, if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me immediately. I will, Dad. Thank you. Marcus spent the evening trying to distract himself with work, but he found himself checking his phone every few minutes. Emma had texted when she arrived at the mall, and again when the movie started. The next message should come around 10 o'clock when the movie ended. At 10:15, Marcus started to worry. At 10:30, he called Emma's phone. It went straight to voicemail. By 10:45, Marcus was in his truck driving toward the mall. He found Melissa in the parking lot outside the cinema, crying and talking to a mall security guard. Mr. Rodriguez. Melissa ran toward him. Emma's in trouble. She went to the bathroom during the movie and never came back. I waited, and then I went looking for her, and I saw Tyler and his friends in the parking lot, and Emma was with them, and she looked scared. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Where did they go? I don't know. Tyler saw me watching and he said something to Emma, and she shook her head, but then he grabbed her arm and they all got in his car. Marcus was already pulling out his phone. What kind of car? A black SUV. One of those big expensive ones. Marcus called 911 first, reporting a possible kidnapping. Then, he called Emma's phone again. This time, it rang. Dad? Emma's voice was small, scared. Emma, where are you? I don't know. We're in Tyler's car. Dad, I tried to get away, but, Emma, listen to me. Are you hurt? No, not yet. But, Tyler says, Dad, he's really angry about the meeting with his parents. He says you embarrassed his family. Marcus heard voices in the background, Tyler saying something about Emma's hero daddy. Emma, can you see any street signs or landmarks? We're leaving the mall area. Dad, I'm scared. The phone went dead. Marcus called 911 again and gave them Tyler's name and description of his vehicle. Then, he started driving, trying to think like Tyler. Where would a 17-year-old boy take someone he wanted to intimidate without being seen? His phone rang. Emma again. Dad, Tyler wants to talk to you. A moment later, Tyler's voice came through the speaker. Mr. Rodriguez? This is Tyler Harrison. I think we need to have a conversation. Marcus forced his voice to remain calm. Tyler, you need to let Emma go right now. See, that's where you're wrong. Emma came with us voluntarily. Didn't you, Emma? Marcus heard Emma's voice, shaky but defiant. I did not. You followed me into the bathroom and said you'd hurt Melissa if I didn't come with you. Emma has such an active imagination, Tyler said. Anyway, Mr. Rodriguez, here's what's going to happen. You embarrassed me and my family with all that drama at school. So now Emma gets to be embarrassed too. Tyler, whatever you think you're doing, this is kidnapping. You're going to prison. Tyler laughed. Prison? Mr. Rodriguez, I'm 17. And this is just friends hanging out. Emma can leave any time she wants. Can't you, Emma? Marcus heard Emma's voice. We're in the middle of nowhere, Dad. They drove me out to some farm or something. Even if I could run, there's nowhere to go. See? Tyler's voice again. Emma's free to go. She just chooses to stay and hang out with us. We're having fun, aren't we, guys? Marcus heard other voices agreeing, the sound of Emma crying. Tyler, what do you want? I want you to understand that you can't protect Emma all the time. I want you to know that when I decide to really hurt her, there's nothing you can do about it. The line went dead. Marcus immediately called 911 again, giving them every detail he could remember from the conversation. The dispatcher told him units were already looking for Tyler's vehicle, but Marcus knew that in the rural areas around their town, there were hundreds of places to hide. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your daughter is very pretty, Mr. Rodriguez. It would be a shame if something happened to that pretty face. Tyler Marcus felt something cold and deadly settle into his chest. Tyler Harrison had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus drove toward the rural area east of town, the direction Tyler's car had been heading when they left the mall. He called Jake, his former teammate. Marcus, what's wrong? I need backup. Emma's been kidnapped by the kid who's been harassing her. I'm 3 hours away. I can't wait 3 hours, Jake. Marcus explained the situation quickly. Jake listened without interrupting. Marcus, you need to let the police handle this. The police are looking, but they're following procedures. I'm not. Marcus, Jake, if it was one of your daughters, what would you do? A long pause. What do you need? Information. Tyler Harrison, 17, drives a black BMW SUV. I need to know where a kid like that would take someone to scare them. I'm on it. Marcus, be careful. Don't do anything that'll land you in prison. I'll do whatever I have to do. Marcus drove the back roads for an hour, stopping at every farm access road to see if Tyler's SUV was parked somewhere out of sight. He was starting to despair when his phone rang. Dad? Emma's voice, barely audible. Emma, are you okay? I'm locked in some kind of barn. Tyler and his friends left me here. They said they were going to get some beer and come back to teach me a lesson. Emma, can you see anything that might tell me where you are? A farm name, a road sign, anything? There's an old mailbox with Patterson painted on it. And I can see a water tower in the distance with something written on it, but it's too dark to read. Marcus knew exactly where she was. The old Patterson farm had been abandoned for years, and it was isolated enough that no one would hear Emma scream. Emma, I'm coming. Can you get out of wherever they put you? The door is locked from the outside, but there are some loose boards. Dad, hurry. I heard Tyler say they'd be back in an hour, and it's been almost that long already. Emma, listen carefully. I want you to hide. Find the darkest corner you can and stay there until I come get you. If you hear voices before you hear mine, don't make a sound. Dad, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. I'm going to get you out of there. I promise. Marcus ended the call and pressed the accelerator harder. The Patterson farm was 15 minutes away. Tyler and his friends could be back any time. As he drove, Marcus found himself slipping into the mindset he'd relied on during the most dangerous missions of his military career. The fear and panic he'd felt since Emma's call was still there, but it was now contained and channeled into cold, analytical thinking. Tyler Harrison and his friends had committed a serious crime. They'd kidnapped a 15-year-old girl with the intention of assaulting her. In Marcus's mind, they'd forfeited any claim to proportional response. Marcus reached the Patterson farm just as he saw headlights approaching from the opposite direction. Tyler's BMW, returning from their beer run. Marcus parked his truck across the access road, blocking their exit, and got out to wait. Tyler's BMW stopped about 50 yards away. Marcus could see 3 figures in the car, probably arguing about what to do. After a few minutes, the car doors opened. Tyler stepped out first, followed by his 2 friends. Even in the darkness, Marcus could see their body language had changed. They'd expected to return to a helpless victim, not to find Emma's father waiting for them. Mr. Rodriguez. Tyler called out, trying to sound confident. What are you doing here? I'm here to get my daughter. Marcus's voice carried across the distance with military precision. I don't know what you're talking about. We're just hanging out here. Marcus started walking toward them. Tyler, you have exactly 10 seconds to tell me where Emma is. You can't threaten us, Mr. Rodriguez. You're not in the military anymore. Marcus continued walking. He'd closed half the distance between them. 5 seconds. Tyler's friends were backing toward their car, but Tyler stood his ground. You think you're so tough? You think because you were a soldier, you can intimidate us? Marcus stopped about 10 feet away from Tyler. In the moonlight, he could see the boy clearly, tall, athletic, used to being the most intimidating person in any room. Tyler had probably never encountered someone who wasn't afraid of him. Tyler, I'm going to explain something to you. I spent 15 years learning how to kill people who threatened innocent civilians. You've kidnapped my 15-year-old daughter with the intention of assaulting her. In my world, that makes you a legitimate target. For the first time, Tyler looked uncertain. You can't touch me. Your father isn't here. Marcus moved faster than Tyler expected. One moment he was standing 10 feet away, the next, he had Tyler on the ground with his arm twisted behind his back. Where is Emma? Marcus asked quietly. The barn, Tyler gasped. She's in the barn. Marcus looked up at Tyler's 2 friends, who were frozen by their car. You too. Get in your car and drive away. If I ever see you near my daughter again, we'll have a different kind of conversation. They scrambled into the BMW and drove off, leaving Tyler alone with Marcus. Tyler, you're going to walk to that barn and unlock the door. Then, you're going to apologize to my daughter for what you've done. And then, you're going to sit quietly until the police arrive. The police? I called them an hour ago. They're on their way. Marcus released Tyler's arm and stepped back. For a moment, he thought Tyler might try to run or fight. Instead, the boy just stood up, rubbing his shoulder. This isn't over, Tyler said. Marcus looked at him with the kind of expression that had once made enemy combatants reconsider their life choices. Tyler, if you ever come near my daughter again, if you ever speak to her or look at her or even think about her, I will finish what we started here tonight. Do you understand me? Tyler nodded, all his earlier bravado gone. they walked to the barn together. Tyler unlocked the door with a key he pulled from his pocket, and Emma came running out. "Dad!" She threw herself into Marcus's arms, sobbing with relief. "It's okay," Marcus murmured into her hair. "I've got you. You're safe." Over Emma's head, Marcus looked at Tyler, who was standing awkwardly nearby. "Tyler has something to say to you," Marcus said. Tyler mumbled an apology that barely qualified his words. "Louder," Marcus said. "I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry I scared you. I won't bother you anymore." Emma pulled back from her father's embrace and looked at Tyler with an expression that was part fear, part anger, and part contempt. "You're not sorry, Tyler. You're just scared because my dad caught you. But, you know what? I'm not scared of you anymore. You're just a pathetic little boy who picks on people smaller than him because it makes him feel important." Tyler's face flushed red, but he didn't respond. They heard sirens in the distance, growing louder. "The police are here," Marcus said. "Emma, are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "No, they just locked me in the barn and left." "But, Dad," Tyler said, "he said when they came back, they were going to." Emma couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus felt his jaw clench, but he forced himself to stay calm. Tyler was 17, a minor. Whatever Marcus wanted to do to him, it would have to wait for the legal system. 3 police cars arrived, followed by an ambulance. The next hour was a blur of statements, questions, and medical checks. Emma was examined by the paramedics and found to be unharmed. Tyler was arrested and read his rights. As Tyler was being put into the back of a police car, he looked at Marcus through the window. There was no remorse in his expression, only anger and calculation. Marcus realized that Tyler saw this as a temporary setback, not a permanent consequence. The police drove Marcus and Emma home, where they gave more detailed statements. By the time everything was finished, it was nearly 3 in the morning. Emma fell asleep on the couch while waiting for the officers to finish their paperwork. Marcus carried her upstairs to her room, tucking her in like he had when she was small. "Dad?" Emma's voice was sleepy but alert. "Yeah? Thank you for coming to get me. Emma, I will always come for you. Always. I know. Dad? What is it, sweetheart? I'm not going to be afraid anymore. What Tyler did tonight, it was horrible, but it showed me something. He's not as powerful as I thought he was. And I have you." Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead. "You have me, but, Emma, you're stronger than you think. You stood up to him tonight. You told him exactly what he was. I learned that from you." After Emma was asleep, Marcus sat in his kitchen with a cup of coffee and tried to process what had happened. Tyler had been arrested, but Marcus knew the legal system well enough to know that rich families had ways of minimizing consequences for their children. Tyler would probably get probation, maybe some community service. More troubling was the look Tyler had given him through the police car window. Tyler Harrison wasn't done with them. He was 17, which meant he'd be 18 soon. An adult, with adult consequences for his actions, but also adult freedoms. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "Your daughter got lucky tonight. Next time, you won't be fast enough." Marcus stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in his chest. Tyler had managed to send this text even while in police custody, which meant he had help. His friends, probably, or maybe other people Marcus hadn't identified yet. Marcus screenshot the message and forwarded it to the detective handling Emma's case. Then, he sat back and began planning. Tyler Harrison wanted to play a longer game? Marcus had 15 years of training in exactly that kind of warfare. Tyler thought his family's money and connections made him untouchable? Marcus had learned how to neutralize targets who had much better resources and much more protection. But, this time, Marcus would have to be smarter than he'd ever been. Emma was right that this wasn't Afghanistan, and Tyler wasn't an enemy combatant. Marcus would have to protect his daughter while staying within the bounds of the law. As he sat in his quiet kitchen, planning his next move, Marcus realized something important. Emma had said she wasn't afraid anymore, and Marcus believed her. Whatever Tyler did next, Emma would face it with the courage she'd shown tonight. But Marcus was afraid. Not of Tyler. Tyler was just a teenage sociopath who'd gotten lucky until now. Marcus was afraid of what he might be willing to do if Tyler threatened Emma again. He'd spent years learning to kill people, and he'd gotten very good at it. Marcus looked at the photo on his mantle: Emma, Sarah, and himself from better times. Sarah would have wanted him to handle this the right way, the legal way. But Sarah had never had to watch her daughter come running out of a barn where she'd been held prisoner by teenage predators. Marcus finished his coffee and went upstairs to check on Emma one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, looking younger than her 15 years. Tomorrow, they'd deal with lawyers and court dates and all the bureaucratic aftermath of Tyler's arrest. But tonight, Marcus would sit in the chair beside Emma's bed and keep watch. Because Tyler had been right about one thing: Marcus couldn't protect Emma all the time. But he could protect her tonight. The weeks following Tyler's arrest brought a deceptive calm to Marcus and Emma's life. Tyler was released on bail within 48 hours, but a restraining order kept him away from Emma, and the school had suspended him pending the outcome of his case. Emma returned to school with a confidence Marcus hadn't seen in months, and, for the first time since Sarah's death, their evening conversations felt normal again. But Marcus remained vigilant. Tyler's threatening text had proven that the boy wasn't deterred by arrest or legal consequences. More concerning was the information Marcus had gathered about Tyler's family connections. Robert Harrison had hired one of the state's most expensive criminal defense attorneys, and word around town was that the family was preparing to paint Tyler as the victim of an overly aggressive ex-military father. 3 weeks after the barn incident, Marcus was working in his home office when the doorbell rang. Through the window, he saw a black sedan in his driveway with government plates. His stomach tightened as he recognized the figure standing on his porch. Admiral Saracen looked exactly as Marcus remembered her: composed, authoritative, and somehow able to convey both warmth and steel in a single expression. She wore civilian clothes, but her posture left no doubt about her military background. "Admiral Chen," Marcus said, opening the door. "This is unexpected." "Hello, Marcus. May I come in?" Marcus stepped aside, his mind racing through possible reasons for her visit. "Of course. Can I offer you coffee?" "That would be nice, thank you." As Marcus prepared coffee in the kitchen, Admiral Chen examined the family photos on his mantle. She paused at the picture of Marcus, Sarah, and Emma taken 4 years earlier. "Your wife was beautiful," she said. "I was sorry to hear about her passing." "Thank you, ma'am." "Marcus, you don't need to call me ma'am anymore. We're both civilians now." Marcus handed her a coffee mug and gestured toward the living room couch. "Force of habit. What brings you to my door, Admiral?" Admiral Chen settled into the couch and studied Marcus with the same intensity she'd once brought to mission briefings. "I've been following your situation with young Mr. Harrison." Marcus felt his guard go up. "Following it how?" "The arrest made regional law enforcement databases. Your name was flagged in my system." "You have a system that flags my name?" Admiral Chen smiled. "Marcus, did you think I'd just lose track of my best operatives when they left the service? I've been keeping an eye on all of you." Marcus wasn't sure how to feel about that revelation. "Why?" "Because talent like yours doesn't just disappear when you take off the uniform. Because the world is a dangerous place, and sometimes the military can't handle every threat that emerges. Because sometimes good people need resources they can't access through official channels." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "Admiral, what exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that Tyler Harrison represents a specific type of threat that our legal system isn't well equipped to handle. Privileged, connected sociopaths who use their family resources to escape consequences for increasingly dangerous behavior. The court system will handle Tyler." Admiral Chen pulled out a tablet and handed it to Marcus. "Will it?" "Take a look." The tablet displayed what appeared to be a private investigator's report on Tyler Harrison. Marcus scanned through pages of information that went far deeper than anything he'd been able to gather on his own. Tyler Harrison has been accused of sexual assault twice in the past 2 years, Admiral Chen said as Marcus read. Both times, the families of the victims were paid substantial sums to drop charges and sign non-disclosure agreements. Marcus felt his jaw clench as he read the details. The police never told us about this. The police don't know. Robert Harrison has been very careful to handle these situations privately, with the help of some very expensive lawyers and private investigators. Marcus continued reading. The report detailed a pattern of escalating behavior dating back to Tyler's early teens. Violence against younger students, sexual harassment, and at least one incident that sounded suspiciously like attempted rape. There's more, Admiral Chen said. Tyler turns 18 in 3 weeks. His father has been planning something they're calling a graduation gift, an extended trip to Europe, followed by enrollment in a private college in Switzerland. Tyler will be out of the country before his trial date. Marcus looked up from the tablet. That's not legal. It's completely legal if the family claims he's studying abroad. By the time the court system realizes he's not coming back, Tyler will be an adult living in a country that doesn't extradite for crimes committed as a minor. Marcus stared at the information in front of him, feeling a familiar combination of rage and helplessness. Why are you showing me this? Because Emma isn't Tyler's only target. There are 2 other girls at the school he's been watching. One of them is only 13. Admiral Chen took back the tablet and pulled up photos of 2 young girls Marcus didn't recognize. Lucy Martinez and Jennifer Wong. Tyler has been following them, taking pictures, learning their schedules. Based on his past patterns, he's planning to assault one or both of them before he leaves the country. Have you told their families? I've tried. Lucy's family doesn't speak English well and doesn't trust authorities. Jennifer's parents think I'm a crank caller making up stories about a nice boy from a good family. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. What do you want from me? Admiral Chen leaned forward, her expression serious. I want you to stop Tyler Harrison before he hurts those girls. Admiral, I can't just. Marcus, what would Sarah want you to do? The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah had always believed in protecting the innocent, regardless of the cost. She'd supported Marcus's military service because she understood that sometimes violence was necessary to prevent greater violence. Sarah would want me to find a legal way to stop him. And if there is no legal way? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, she'd want me to do whatever was necessary. Admiral Chen nodded. Tyler Harrison is going to hurt those girls, Marcus. The only question is whether someone stops him first. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Tyler Harrison needs to understand that his behavior has consequences. Real consequences that his father's money can't make disappear. Marcus studied Admiral Chen's face, looking for clues about what she was really asking him to do. Admiral, are you asking me to kill a 17-year-old boy? I'm asking you to neutralize a threat to innocent children. How you choose to do that is up to you. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street where he and Emma had tried to build a normal life. Admiral, I left the military because I was tired of making life and death decisions. I wanted to be a father, not a soldier. Sometimes those roles aren't mutually exclusive. Marcus turned back to face her. And if I get caught? If I go to prison? What happens to Emma then? Emma would be taken care of. I can guarantee that. By whom? Admiral Chen hesitated. There are people, Marcus. Good people who understand that sometimes the system fails and individuals have to step up. Marcus felt a chill as he realized what Admiral Chen was describing. You're talking about some kind of vigilante organization. I'm talking about a network of people who care about justice and who have the skills to achieve it when official channels fail. Marcus sat back down on the couch, his mind racing. How long has this network existed? Longer than you might think. And it's made up of people you'd respect, former military, retired law enforcement, people who've seen too much suffering caused by criminals who slip through legal loopholes. Why come to me? Why not handle this yourselves? Because Tyler Harrison is your mission, Marcus. He threatened your daughter. He's planning to hurt other children in your community. This is personal for you in a way it can't be for the rest of us. Marcus thought about Emma, about how she'd looked when she ran out of that barn 3 weeks ago. He thought about the two girls in the photos, 13 and 14 years old, going about their daily lives with no idea that a predator was stalking them. What kind of support are you offering? Intelligence, logistics, cleanup if necessary. But the primary action would be yours. And afterward? Afterward, Tyler Harrison is no longer a threat to anyone. You go back to being Emma's father, and those two little girls get to grow up without being victimized by a sociopath. Marcus was quiet for a long time, staring at the coffee table where the tablet lay with photos of Tyler's potential victims. Finally, he looked up at Admiral Chun. I need to think about this. Of course. But, Marcus, Tyler leaves for Europe in 3 weeks. After that, he's beyond our reach. Admiral Chen stood to leave, then paused at the door. Marcus, I know this is difficult. I know you wanted a different kind of life. But sometimes our skills choose our responsibilities, not the other way around. After Admiral Chen left, Marcus sat alone in his living room, trying to process what she'd asked of him. A year ago, even 6 months ago, he might have been tempted by her offer. The idea of permanently solving the Tyler Harrison problem was undeniably appealing. But something had changed since the barn incident. Emma had found her courage, and Marcus had discovered that protecting her didn't always require violence. Maybe there was another way. When Emma came home from school that afternoon, she found Marcus in the kitchen making her favorite snacks. Dad? You're acting weird. What's going on? Marcus looked at his daughter, confident, resilient, stronger than she knew. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Do you feel safe at school now? With Tyler suspended and the restraining order? Emma considered the question seriously. Mostly, yeah. I mean, Tyler's friends still give me dirty looks sometimes, but they don't actually do anything. Why? I found out that Tyler might be planning to leave the country before his trial. He might never face real consequences for what he did to you. Emma was quiet for a moment. Are you asking me if I want you to do something about that? Marcus was startled by his daughter's perceptiveness. Would you want me to do something about it? Dad, a few months ago, I would have said yes. I would have wanted you to hurt Tyler the way he hurt me. But, you know what I realized? What? Tyler is pathetic. He's so insecure and so weak that the only way he can feel powerful is by hurting people who can't fight back. And if he runs away to Europe, if he spends the rest of his life hiding from the consequences of his actions, that doesn't make him powerful. It makes him exactly what he is, a coward. Marcus felt something ease in his chest. So you wouldn't want me to pursue this further? I want you to be my dad, not my personal assassin. I want you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes next. That evening, Marcus called Admiral Chen. I've made my decision, he told her. And? I'm not going to kill Tyler Harrison. There was a long pause. Marcus, those little girls will be protected. Just not the way you're suggesting. How, then? Marcus had spent the afternoon developing a different kind of plan. Tyler's weakness isn't his physical vulnerability. It's his reputation and his family connections. What if instead of eliminating Tyler, we eliminate his ability to hurt people? I'm listening. Tyler's father has been covering up his son's crimes with money and legal maneuvering. What if that information became public? What if Tyler's past victims found each other and compared notes? What if the families of his future targets knew exactly what kind of person they were dealing with? Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. social destruction instead of physical elimination. Tyler Harrison wants to be powerful and feared. What if instead he became a pariah? What if everyone in his new life in Europe knew exactly what kind of person he was? It's riskier, Marcus. Physical elimination is permanent. Social destruction can be overcome. Maybe. But it's also justice instead of revenge. And it teaches Emma that problems can be solved without violence. Admiral Chen sighed. You're a better man than I gave you credit for, Marcus. I'm a father who wants his daughter to be proud of him. All right. I'll provide you with everything you need to destroy Tyler Harrison's reputation and his family's ability to cover up his crimes. But, Marcus? Yes? If this approach fails, if Tyler hurts those little girls or comes back for Emma, we do this the other way. Understood. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus worked with Admiral Chen's network to carefully document and expose Tyler Harrison's history of violence and sexual assault. The information was leaked to local media, sent anonymously to the families of Tyler's past and potential future victims, and shared with law enforcement agencies in several countries. The results were swift and devastating. Robert Harrison's law practice lost several major clients. Tyler's acceptance to the Swiss college was withdrawn. The families of his past victims came forward publicly, and, suddenly, Tyler found himself facing multiple criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions.